Welcome all back to Rooted with Aiysha. I want to thank you all for joining me on another impactful quick story time and a quick read that I did post on my TikTok and other social media platforms that I'm currently and finally finished in less than 2 weeks. The Marathon Don't Stop, The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle by Rob Kerner. And keep in mind, this book was not sent to me. This was purchased. And you can get this book where all books are sold. And I know that many individuals, they have their own perceptions of Nipsey Hussle. They have their own biases. They have their own conspiracy theories. But what I'm here to talk to essentially really say and talk to all of you about is his character, his journey, his transformation, his appreciation for heritage and ancestry. And I'm going to read 2 excerpts from chapter 3 and 4 because at a time that we're living in, I found it too profound and so impactful that it has to be shared. And I honestly think that by listening to this, I hope that it really helps you and on your journey too. Because in chapter 3, on the hood, I'm here for it. This chapter for me, it was a lot of reflection, a lot of self-actualization, realization that he was having in himself about his environment, about, survival. You gotta hustle. You have to make sure that you can make it from this day to the next or try to survive. But one of the episodes that I thought that was so profound was that he was reflecting and he had other concerns as well about running around the streets in survival mode and trying to get closer to the dreams that he wanted to achieve. And then he said, it stated that he said, at that point, I kind of went through my struggle. He reflected later. A lot of people were stuck in that zone right there, never transcending to the next stage, which was realizing who I am, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and making decisions based on that instead of being like a leaf on a tree, getting blown whichever way. The wind of change were blowing, but an unexpected opportunity would soon present itself. The uncertainty. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, we're living in a time of uncertainty. Even as individuals, we're living in different transcending obstacles where we're trying to essentially figure out what to do, where to go, who we are, whose we are, what language do we truly speak, ancestral, education, employment, different things. So what I also appreciated is that this book felt like you were talking to a friend. It felt like you were listening to the story of a friend, or it felt like your friend was telling you a story of some wild stuff. But stuff that made you like, man, I feel you on that. Like topics and discussions you really resonate and you really felt. But one of the most profound topics was when his father, oh Lord, sorry about that. But one of the most impactful chapters was Eritrea, when he went to Eritrea with his father and brother. And it was almost like a pilgrimage. Have you ever been to your own home country where your ancestors came from and actually had a pilgrimage moment where you actually felt like, man, my ancestors survived this so I could sit right here and do what I'm doing, or at the very least feel connected to something. So that's what I found so profound, because on the chapter 4 of Eritrea, page 126, Nipsey, his overall perspective was on point. But this really speaks to now as we're living in our world, but also biases that we have of other countries, their nationalities, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and the overall perspective that we should not have or blanket it. Like, where are you from? When you're asked that question, then someone instantly assumes where you're from instead of giving you the courtesy and respect to allow you to answer that question. So that's why I love that he said this in here. And I love that this was documented. And it goes on to say, when you think of America, they don't market Skid Row. Marinate on that for a moment. They market Hollywood, but they don't market Crenshaw. They don't market Ward 9. They don't market what's happening in Atlanta, the poverty issues. They don't market the encampments in many states. They don't market the inhumane treatment of others, the lack thereof of resources and support. They don't market poverty. They don't market single parenthood. They market Barbie and Ken. They market the white picket fence in the house with two parents. They don't market the real realities of everyone that's in this country that helped build this country. The country didn't build itself. And then he also went on to say they market Hollywood. They market Wall Street. I could take you to a place in New York that look a lot like the poverty in Eritrea. It's a little bit more extreme in terms of no plumbing, but in terms of the type of person that makes, you may not be as critically affected because of the wealth gap is not so vast. You might see a homeless man outside of a bank of Wall Street. Skid Row is right down the street from Hollywood in LA. But in Africa, they market the famine or the poverty a little more for whatever reason. I can't speculate on the agenda, but when I went, I was like, man, they got plumbing and a stove and hot showers, king-size beds and cable and direct TV and Mercedes Benzes. So I will leave you with that. Never judge a book by its cover. Never categorize someone by their nationality, if they're a part of a gang, if they're a part of whichever neighborhood, because you don't know what impact and what purpose God has for people. He lived his life. His story was told. Many people will go on to tell his story. What do you want people to say about you? We all got to think about that. We're living in a time of uncertainty, but there's no time like the present to find that certainty, to find out who we are right now. The marathon don't stop. The life and times of Nipsey Hussle. Beautiful, just beautiful.